Hello, everyone. Over the next 25 minutes, I will give you an update on sustainability in the beauty industry, and I will give you some future projections. So I want to start with some perspective about the news. This is really about 2020, what's happened since the pandemic. So 2020 was an unprecedented year, and we're still seeing the repercussions this year in 2021. And one of the reasons why we have this as an online event is because of the absence of physical events because of the coronavirus crisis. So we've seen a health, social, and economic crisis caused by this virus, COVID-19. And also last year, we saw the Black Lives Matter movement highlighting police brutality and prejudices against ethnic minorities, not just in the USA, but in other parts of the world. We've seen protests in Australia because of that, in Europe and other parts of the world. And also 2020 was unprecedented in terms of forest fires. We saw forest fires in parts of the USA, as well as Amazon and Australia. So it was quite catastrophic for the environment in terms of this deforestation or this destruction that we've had because of forest fires. And here in Europe, we've had the ongoing refugee crisis happening in many parts of this continent. So in summary, our planet is facing major environmental, social, and health crisis, and COVID-19 is just a part of that. And here's the traditional approach to sustainability. According to the Brundtland Commission, sustainability has got three pillars: environmental, social, and economic. And this model was introduced in 1987. The question now is, over 34 years later, and we're facing major health, social, environmental crisis, is that approach still valid? Do we need to look at new models for sustainability in light of COVID-19, which has highlighted the shortfalls of traditional approaches? So that's the first question I want to ask. And looking more closely at the environmental impacts, how is the cosmetics industry addressing its environmental impacts? The common ways that the industry is addressing its impacts is by ethical sourcing of ingredients, organic and sustainable production methods, green chemistry, green formulations, sustainable packaging, carbon and water management in terms of measuring and reducing the impacts, operational efficiency, and waste management. Now, talking about impacts, the first step before you can go ahead and reduce your impacts, you need to measure your impacts. And this is where sustainability metrics are important. And typically, this is done by life cycle analysis, starting from the raw materials in terms of extraction, production, the manufacturing process, the packaging distribution, the use at the consumer level, then end-of-life considerations. And the chart on the right-hand side gives you the average environmental footprint of a consumer in Canada. And it shows you that food represents about a third of the whole environmental impact of us at an individual level. Now, when we talk about sustainability metrics, the most common metrics which are taken by the beauty industry are carbon footprint, energy usage, water footprint, waste management, or waste measurement and packaging materials. And here's an example of Garnier last year when they introduced their sustainability plan, how they're using metrics as part of their sustainability plans. So they've set targets by 2025, all of their products will be made with zero virgin plastics, which will mean a savings of 37,000 tons of virgin plastic per year. All of their plastic packaging will be reusable, recyclable, or compostable. And they plan to reformulate their hair care products so that they have 91% biodegradability. And then they will have 90% of their products, new or renovated, will have an improved environmental social profile. So this is the way sustainability metrics are being used by operators in the beauty industry in terms of setting their plans and setting objectives in terms of how they will become more sustainable or reduce their impacts. Now, one of the areas which is receiving most attention at the moment is packaging. And to give some context, packaging represents about a third of household waste, with plastics comprising about 24% share, I think, given in that diagram over there. So 24% share of all packaging waste comes from plastics. And the beauty industry is really spending a lot of time and energy to reduce its packaging impact. And here are some of the examples from the natural cosmetics industry on how companies are doing that. We've got the UK brand of Bulldog, which is the leading brand of natural male grooming products. They're using biopolymers, which are made from sugarcane, and that makes their packaging biodegradable and compostable. You've got the US company, Pacific Shaving Company, and they're using water-soluble packaging for its shaving cream. And that's actually, that film actually biodegrades underwater, and it's non-toxic, it's good for the environment. I won't say it's good for the environment, but it's better for the environment than the plastic films. And then you have Pangea Organics, which is an American brand of natural cosmetics. They've actually got plantable packaging. So that packaging contains seeds which germinate in soil and they develop into plants. Now, the second area I want to talk about is raw materials, specifically green ingredients. And green ingredients are becoming more important because cosmetic brands are under pressure to reduce the environmental and health impacts of their ingredients. Consumers are becoming more and more aware of contentious chemicals like parabens, phthalates, SLS, SLES, and they want to switch to green alternatives. And related to that, consumers are buying more and more natural and organic cosmetics. And because of that, brands are reformulating, they're using more natural and green raw materials. The net effect is, in the last 10 years, we've seen the palette of green raw materials widen considerably. Coming to the second major pillar of sustainability, social impacts. How can the cosmetics industry make a social difference? Here are some of the common ways the industry can address the social impacts. It can enter equitable customer-supplier partnerships. It can adopt fair trade mechanisms, certification, whereby growers or producers in developing countries are given a fair price. They can have fair HR policies in terms of recruitment and treating employees fairly. You can support your local economy by creating jobs, but also by using local suppliers. You can make social investment, and this is especially in the case of sourcing in developing countries. You can do investment so that there's bridges, there's hospitals, there's schools, and there's other infrastructure for communities. And you could also undertake corporate philanthropy, where you're going to invest a percentage of your profits for local communities or for good causes. The most common way the beauty industry is addressing its social impacts has been by sustainable sourcing. And this is typically of plant or agricultural materials, whereby you're creating a positive social impact by helping growers or producers in developing countries, and you're helping local communities come out of poverty by giving them a fair price or giving them a higher price than what they would traditionally get. And it's not just plant agricultural materials, it can be things like shea butter, which is made from shea kernels, collected by women cooperatives in parts of Africa. Now, the subject which everyone's been talking about for the last 1 year is COVID-19. And COVID-19 has had a big impact on the beauty industry. And I want to talk about it in terms of sustainability first. And there's been a lot of talk in the last 1 year saying that how COVID-19 has caused a reset, it has caused us to rethink how we do business and how we lead our lives. And one of the positives of this crisis has been is that for the first time in over 10 years, we saw a drop in greenhouse gases. And that was mainly because of the drop in the industrial activity. The economy started to slow down, and we saw a marked shift in terms of greenhouse gases last year. And related to that, we saw less use of plastics, of materials, of chemicals because of this economic downturn. And we saw ecosystems strengthen. In many parts of the world, biodiversity flourished. And here's an example from the USA, where mountain goats, for the first time, started to roam the streets because people were not out walking around, they were not shopping, people were forced to stay at home because of lockdowns, and wildlife started to roam the streets. And another positive has been that consumer awareness of natural ingredients and health issues has increased. Consumers have become more aware about the relationship between health and wellness, their personal diets, and the products that they use. And just to give some examples from India, um, we, what happened in India last year, March 2020, there was a lockdown. And because of the lockdown, a lot of factories, a lot of manufacturing plants closed. And this led to a big decline in environmental pollution. And there were these media reports whereby showing that this positive impact that it had on the country. On the right-hand side, it shows you the Himalayas. For the first time, they were allowed to be seen in its full splendor because of the drop in environmental pollution. And you could see it from parts of India where you could never see the Himalayas before. And on the left-hand side is a picture of the Taj Mahal, which could be seen in a clear blue sky for the first time for decades because of the drop in environmental pollution. So those were the positives. And the question is, has COVID-19 really been good for the planet in terms of the environment? Well, in terms of sustainability, it really hasn't. Now almost halfway through 2021, we've had over 3.3 million people dead and over 164 million infections. And 3.3 million is probably just the conservative estimate. So looking at, apart from the human cost of it, let's look at it in terms of environmental costs. We've seen millions of plastic disposables, syringes, and also masks, facial coverings. Millions of these new particles have been discarded, thrown into the waste bin, thrown into streets, and that's entering waste streams. So that's been a big environmental disaster in terms of this new waste that's occurred. And on the second picture there, on the right-hand side, there's been a big rise in animal poaching in parts of Africa because tourism and policing has fallen. And also indigenous communities, especially in Brazil, which has been very badly affected by the crisis. The death toll of indigenous communities has been disproportionately higher because they don't have the same access to healthcare facilities and medicines. And also in Western countries like the UK, in Germany, in parts of the USA, lockdowns caused recycling and waste facilities to close, which led to a big decline in recycling, which meant more waste. So the net result is that the pandemic has not just had a big toll in terms of deaths and in terms of health crises, but it's also been very bad for the environment, but also social issues as well. And we expect that to happen, to continue for years, if not for decades to come. Now, what we've also seen in the last 1 year, we've seen more and more social challenges. The first thing is COVID-19 has highlighted the discrepancies in terms of access to healthcare from the richer countries like the USA, UK, Italy, France, to the poorer parts of the world in Asia and Africa. And those parts of the world have been disproportionately affected. We've also seen Black Lives Matter. This movement started off in the USA, and now it's spread to different parts of the world, and it's forcing companies to relook at the way that they operate in terms of moving higher and how they treat ethnic minorities. And also, we've seen in the last 1 year, COVID-19, just to repeat what I said before, it's highlighted social inequality that exists in the planet. And on the right-hand side, with the refugee crisis, a lot of people are fleeing their countries in Africa, in Middle East, in Asia, because of political instability, because of terrorism, and also in some cases because of economic migration. And also in the left-hand side, gender discrimination, which is still a very big issue that needs to be addressed by society. So these are the social challenges which we face as a planet, but also corporations are looking more and more at. And in the second part, I'm going to cover that a little bit more detail in terms of future projections. So here I want to talk about the future. What can we expect to see in the coming years? The first thing is we're going to be seeing more diverse sources of green materials. COVID-19 is going to continue to impact supply chains for ingredients. We're going to see a proliferation in sustainability schemes, charters, and logos, and consumer behavior is expected to continue to change. We also expect to see more changes so that companies prepare for a circular economy. And the net result is that sustainability, which has become fashionable, trendy, is expected to become more prominent in the upcoming years. Looking at some of these trends, the first thing is ingredients. When we talked about green ingredients 10 years ago, it was about natural and organic and plant materials. Now it's no longer about plant materials, it's about sustainable feedstock. It's about things like tree-based ingredients, about algae, bamboo, bio-based materials. We're also talking about novel actives, the use of sustainable extraction and processing methods, and also new technologies like plant cell technology and biotech, which are used to produce plant-based ingredients or green materials in the lab, and they have a higher sustainability profile than those which are grown naturally on soil or grown or which are wild, harvested or cultivated. A big trend in the beauty industry is upcycling ingredients. What we're seeing is more and more ingredients which are from food waste or food sites streams being used in the beauty industry. A pioneer is the Taiwanese brand, Hero Right. They've been producing hair care products from coffee grounds for over 10 years. In the UK, you've got Dr. Kraft, and they started producing natural dyes a few years ago from the waste of blackcurrant juice. So they're using the blackcurrant pulp to produce a natural hair dye. And also in the UK, you've got a brand called Upcircle Beauty, which is using coffee grounds and waste from fruit and vegetables to produce a range of personal care products. Now, let's look at how COVID-19 has impacted the green ingredients industry. So, three broad ways the coronavirus crisis has affected green ingredients. First, there's been a shortage of natural ingredients since the crisis started in 2020. Ingredients like aloe vera, lemon myrtle, then we saw shortages because of a surge in demand for hand sanitizers. And we saw quite a lot of disruption last year in terms of disruption of raw materials and plastics for packaging because of lockdowns in various countries like China and India. That caused a disruption in the supply of these ingredients and raw materials to producers in Europe and North America. And what we're also seeing is that more and more companies are looking at deglobalizing their supply networks, whereby they're no longer looking at buying the cheapest materials or ingredients from different parts of the world, because the crisis has really shown how vulnerable these supply chains are in terms of these shocks. So what companies are looking to do is source more locally, if not regionally, for their raw materials, for their ingredients, as well as packaging. And how has COVID-19 affected the market and consumers? So looking at the market level, there's been a lot of retail disruption because of closures of department stores, beauty retailers, non-essential retail during lockdowns. So that's had a big impact in terms of sales of beauty products. Also, the non-retail sector, like salons, spas, beauty centers, they were forcibly closed during lockdowns and emergency measures. So that caused a downturn in terms of demand for beauty products. But the big winner during the crisis has really been online retailing. Brands have reported a big increase in online sales of their products because physical stores were forced to close. And Amazon reported its record sales in 2020 because of COVID-19 and emergency measures which were introduced. Looking at the consumer level, what we've seen is consumer demand has remained strong for beauty products, especially certain type of beauty products. Um, soaps, hand sanitizers, things which involve cleaning have seen a big increase. But overall, consumer demand has weakened, especially for products like fragrances, color cosmetics, non-essential products. Consumers are going out less, so they're not buying so much uh, lipstick, color cosmetics, makeup, mascara, etc. So consumer demand has generally weakened, but also we've seen consumer spending power go down. Consumers are becoming more frugal because they're scared about their jobs, they're scared about their livelihoods, and they're worried about the future. So they're spending less overall. And consumers are also changing the way that they're buying these products. Um, For example, consumers used to visit retailers more often, buy less products per visit, and now they're tending to go out less often because of concerns about the virus. However, they're buying more products per visit, whether it's food products or beauty products, because they want to do more shopping per visit as opposed to more frequent trips. The next trend I want to talk about is label proliferation. And what we've seen in the last 10 years is that more and more ethical labels have been introduced. This trend has really started off in the food industry. In the food industry, you've got over 200 different ethical labels. Organic is just one of them. Fair trade is just another. And this trend is moving over to the cosmetics industry, whereby more and more logos and seals are going on to personal care products. And here's some examples just in the last couple of years. The Body Shop, they launched the first fairly traded plastic, and this plastic is collected from waste collectors in parts of India. It comes to the UK, and they're using that to make packaging for some of its products. You've got Henkel in Germany. They're using ocean plastic for its spa and nature box products. You're seeing cradle to cradle certification schemes being adopted by many brands in the beauty industry. And you're seeing different logos like CO2 neutral, climate neutral, plastic free, zero waste, UEBT, which is an ethical sourcing scheme. So all of these new labels are being introduced on personal care products, and they represent some sustainability or some low environmental impact or ethical attribute. Now, the same developments are happening at the retail level. Retailers are introducing new labels which are representing environmentally friendly or clean beauty products. And just to give some examples there, Clean at Sephora, that was introduced by Sephora in the USA a few years ago. And that label is given to products which represent their clean beauty standard. Conscious Beauty was introduced by Ulta in October last year, and that represents clean label products and all products which have a positive social impact or environmental impact. Whole Foods Market, they've had their premium body care standard since 2008, and that's given to products that which meet their natural and organic standard criteria. However, the most impact is possibly from Amazon, which in September last year launched a climate-friendly pledge given to over 25,000 products which have a low environmental impact. So these developments in terms of eco labels is not just happening in terms of brands, but it's happening for retailers as well. Coming to consumers, so consumer behavior is changing. And this chart here is from Kantar World Panel, which did a study a couple of years ago, and they wanted to identify the green issues that give most concern to consumers. And again, this study was done pre-COVID-19, and the concern which is most important to consumers worldwide is climate change, stated by 70% of consumers. Then is plastic waste, 14%, water pollution, 11%, water shortage is 8%, and air pollution, 8%. Then waste, food, deforestation, etc., 7%. So this shows us that climate change is the most important issue, and consumers are becoming more and more concerned about green issues worldwide. Now, the question there is, since COVID-19, how much has that changed? And will it really change? And the indicators so far is that it's not going to become less important. If anything, it's going to become more important. So this was a study done by Tierney during the pandemic last year that shows that almost half of all American consumers are more concerned about the environment since the beginning of the pandemic, and 55% are more likely to buy environmentally friendly products now. So this shows you that during the pandemic, green issues are becoming more important and consumers are more likely to buy sustainable products. Now, many of the issues which our planet faces is partly because products are designed for an economy which involves production and waste. And this is considered to be a linear model whereby products are designed with no thought in process on what's going to happen to the products and the materials at the end of their life cycle. And it's argued that we have climate change, we've got biodiversity loss, water pollution, air pollution, because of poor product design. And this thinking of a circular economy is that products should be designed with end-of-life considerations in mind. An example of that is the cradle-to-cradle design approach. And the whole idea here is that products should, at the end of their life cycle, not go to waste, but the nutrients should be recycled or repurposed for a new life. And this is the way forward for the beauty industry, according to many people in the industry. And there are some examples of this, and there are instances where brands are already moving in that direction. Unilever is one of them. So Unilever today, they've got over 600 sites which have zero waste to landfill. And more and more companies like P&G, L'Oreal, they're moving in that direction. Another example of this is TerraCycle. They launched the Loop platform in the USA, then in France, in the UK, in Canada. They're going to be launching it in Japan, and they're going to be launching it in Australia and South Korea. And this is really a remake of the old milkman model, whereby the packaging is owned by the brand and the consumer just uses the product. At the end of the product's life cycle, the packaging is returned to the brands who clean it, wash it, and then they use it again for new product, which is given on to consumers. So this was introduced in the USA in 2019, in the UK 2020, in France, and various other countries. And many personal care brands have been part of this initiative, whereby they want to reduce the environmental impact by not using single-use plastics. So they're using plastic which can be reused multiple times. This brings me to the end of my presentation. If you want to learn more about sustainability issues in the beauty industry, we host dedicated summits about this since 2019. We have our 12th North American virtual edition hosted online on 21st to 24th of June. We're hosting our European virtual edition at the end of October, which is going to be covering a lot of these issues like green materials, packaging, metrics, social issues, customer impacts. So if you want to learn more, please visit the website sustainablecosmeticsummit.com and you'll be able to get more information. And that brings me to the end of my seminar, in which I've given you an overview of sustainability issues in the beauty industry. If you need more information, please visit our website, or you can look me up on LinkedIn. Thank you.